The alarm on the bridge of the New Dawn pulled Captain Lee Hyun from his thoughts. He had been staring at the stars through the main viewport, thinking about how far humanity had come in just 30 years. Now they were part of something bigger, something that stretched across the galaxy. But the alarm reminded him that space was still dangerous, still full of surprises. "Captain, we have multiple contacts ahead," Ensign Choi Minji called from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls. "They're not moving, just drifting." Hyun moved to stand behind her, looking at the display. Dozens of ships floated in the darkness of space. They were old, damaged, and clearly in trouble. "Try to contact them," he said. The communication officer worked for a moment, then shook his head. "No response, sir. But I'm picking up life signs. Thousands of them." Dr. Park Ji-won entered the bridge, her medical bag in hand. She always seemed to know when something was wrong. "What's happening?" she asked. "Unknown vessels," Hyun replied. "Dead in the water but full of living beings." They watched as the New Dawn moved closer. The ships came into clearer view. They were covered in strange markings built in a style Hyun had never seen before. Parts of them looked like they had been repaired with whatever materials the crew could find. It was the fleet of a desperate people. "Captain, I'm getting a weak signal," the communication officer said suddenly. It's a distress call. Very old format, but I can translate it." A voice filled the bridge. It was rough, tired, speaking in a language the ship's computers slowly converted to words they could understand. "This is Elder Shesra of the Velkari people. Our fleet is dying. Our children are starving. We have nowhere else to go. If anyone can hear this, please, we only ask for food and fuel. We will work for it. We will pay any price. Please don't turn us away," the message repeated, over and over. The same plea, the same desperation. Ji-won looked at Hyun. "We have to help them." "I know," Hyun said. "But first I need to contact the Galactic Council. This is their space too. We need to follow protocol." It took 6 hours to get a response from the Council. 6 hours while the New Dawn crew watched the dying fleet. 6 hours while they counted the life signs and realized there were over 10,000 beings on those ships. 6 hours too long. When Ambassador Thelmon's face finally appeared on the screen, Hyun felt relief. Until he saw the ambassador's expression. It was cold, almost angry. "Captain Lee Hyun," Thelmon said, "I understand you have encountered the Velkari fleet." "Yes, Ambassador. They need immediate assistance. Medical supplies, food, repairs. You will provide nothing," Thelmon interrupted. "The Velkari are exiled from all Council worlds. They are forbidden from receiving aid from any Council member species. This includes humanity." Hyun felt his stomach drop. "Exiled for what crime?" "Biological contamination," Thelmon replied. "The Velkari produce spores from their skin. These spores cause severe reactions in most Council species. They are a danger to civilized worlds. The Council voted 3 years ago to remove them from all inhabited systems. Where were they supposed to go? That is not the Council's concern. They chose to remain together rather than scatter to uninhabited worlds. That was their choice." Thelmon leaned forward. "Captain, humanity is new to the Council. You have worked hard to earn your place. Do not throw it away on a dead species. Turn your ship around. Forget you saw them." The screen went dark. Hyun stood in silence for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew waited. They had all heard. They all knew what the Council demanded. "Captain," Minji said quietly. "Get me Dr. Park in the medical bay," Hyun said. "Now." 10 minutes later, Hyun stood in the medical bay with Ji-won. Between them, suspended in a containment field, floated a small sample of the Velkari spores. Ji-won had used a drone to collect it from the nearest ship. "What am I looking at?" Hyun asked. Ji-won touched her tablet and data filled the screens around them. "These are the spores the Council fears. I've run every test I can think of. I've exposed them to human tissue samples, human blood, human skin cells." She paused. "Captain, they're completely harmless to us." "You're sure?" "I'm positive. More than that, I think they might actually be beneficial. Early results suggest they could help with crop growth. But that needs more testing." She turned to face him. "Hyun, whatever reaction other species have to these spores, humans don't share it. We can be around the Velkari with no danger at all." Hyun looked at the spores, then back at Ji-won. "The Council will punish us if we help." "I know. We could lose everything we've worked for. All our trade agreements, our place in galactic society, our access to their technology. I know that too. So what do we do? Jiwon met his eyes. We do what's right. Hyun made his decision in that moment. He touched his communication badge. All senior staff report to the conference room. Now. 20 minutes later, Hyun stood at the head of the table looking at his officers. He had explained the situation. He had told them about the council's demands. He had shared Jiwon's findings. Now he waited. If we help them, Earth will suffer, his first officer said. The whole human race could pay the price. Yes, Hyun agreed. But if we don't help them, they'll die, Minji said. All of them. Even the children. Yes, Hyun said again. What happens to humanity's soul if we turn away? Jiwon asked quietly. We came to the stars dreaming of meeting other species, of building friendships across the void. What does it say about us if we abandon people in need just because someone told us to? The room fell silent. Each officer struggled with the weight of the decision. Finally, the first officer spoke. Captain, I think I speak for everyone when I say this. We didn't join the fleet to follow orders that go against everything we believe. We joined to explore, to help, to make the universe better. He looked around the table. Everyone nodded. Sir, I recommend we render all possible aid to the Velkari fleet. Hyun felt something tight in his chest release. He had hoped, but he hadn't been sure. Now he knew his crew stood with him. Then we're agreed, he said. Prepare to bring the Velkari aboard. Medical teams get ready to receive patients. Engineering, start working on their ships. Communications, I want to speak directly to this Elder Shesera. He stood. And someone send a message to Earth. Tell them what we're doing. Tell them why. Let them decide if they want to support us or not. As his crew rushed to their stations, Hyun returned to the bridge. Through the viewport, he could see the Velkari fleet. Soon he would see the Velkari themselves. Soon he would shake hands with beings his own government told him to ignore. He thought about the Council's threats. He thought about the price humanity might pay. Then he thought about 10,000 beings dying alone in the dark, and he knew he had made the right choice. Ensign Minji, he said, take us in. Nice and slow. Let's bring them home. The new dawn moved forward into history. Governor Kim Dae-hyun stood in the observation deck of Mars Colony, watching the news feeds from Earth. Every screen showed the same thing, the Velkari. Images of the reptilian beings with their glowing skin patterns filled the displays. Some humans looked afraid, others looked curious. But more and more Dae-hyun noticed they looked sympathetic. The first Velkari had arrived on Mars 3 days ago. Dae-hyun had been there to meet them. He remembered how Elder Shesera had stepped off the transport, her body thin from hunger, her scales dull from stress. She had looked at him with large golden eyes and said simply, "Thank you for not turning away." Now those same Velkari were settling into temporary housing in the colony's lower levels, and the Galactic Council was furious. Governor Kim, his assistant, called. "Ambassador Yoon is calling from Earth." Dae-hyun turned from the window and activated the communication screen. Ambassador Yoon Sumin appeared looking tired. She had been dealing with angry council members for days. "Dae-hyun," she said, "it's getting worse. The council has officially suspended all trade agreements with humanity. 3 neighboring systems have closed their borders. We can't send ships through their space anymore." "How is Earth responding?" Dae-hyun asked. Yoon smiled, but it was a sad smile. That's the interesting part. The government held a vote. 80% of Earth's population supports helping the Velkari. They're angry at the council, not at Captain Hyun. What about the other colonies? Same story everywhere. Luna, Europa, Titan, they're all opening their doors. People are volunteering to host Velkari families. Schools are preparing to take Velkari children. Yoon paused. Dae-hyun, I've been a diplomat for 20 years. I've never seen humanity this unified. Usually we argue about everything. But this is different. Dae-hyun understood. Something about the Velkari situation had touched something deep in the human spirit. Maybe it was because humans remembered being alone, being the only intelligent species they knew for so long. Maybe it was because humans had always told stories about helping strangers. Whatever the reason, humanity was standing together. "What does the council want?" Dae-hyun asked. Yoon's expression hardened. "They're demanding we hand over every Velkari within 48 hours. If we don't, they'll cut us off completely. No trade, no technology exchange, no diplomatic relations. We'll be isolated, and if we agree, then we prove the council right. We prove that humans care more about comfort than conscience." Yoon leaned closer to the screen. "Dae-hyun, I need to know Mars stands with Earth on this." If even one colony breaks ranks, we're finished. Daehyun thought about the Velkari he had met. He thought about a small Velkari child named Shari who had smiled at him yesterday, her bioluminescent patterns glowing with joy because she had received a real meal for the first time in months. He thought about what kind of person he would be if he sent her back into the dark. Mars stands with Earth, he said firmly. Tell the Council they can take their threats and throw them into a black hole. Yoon laughed, a real laugh this time. I'll use more diplomatic language, but yes, that's essentially what I plan to say. After the call ended, Daehyun made his way down to the agricultural levels. This was where the real miracle was happening. The underground farms of Mars Colony fed nearly 50,000 people. The soil was carefully controlled, the lighting precisely managed, every plant monitored for optimal growth. It was a delicate system that had taken decades to perfect. When Daehyun arrived, he found his head of agriculture, Dr. Nam Jinho, standing with 3 Velkari farmers. They were examining a section of wheat that looked healthier than anything Daehyun had ever seen on Mars. Governor, Jinho called, waving him over. You need to see this. Daehyun approached. The wheat was tall, golden, and thick. What happened? One of the Velkari, an older male named Kresh, gestured to the plants. We showed Dr. Nam our farming methods. On our world, we grew food in harmony with our spores. The spores help plants resist disease and grow stronger. He touched a wheat stalk gently. We asked if we could try here. We thought we could pay you back for your kindness. And? Daehyun prompted. Jinho grinned. And the wheat yield is up 30%. Disease is down to almost nothing. And it's growing faster. He pulled up data on his tablet. Governor, if this works across all our crops, and I think it will, we could double our food production in 6 months. Daehyun stared at the wheat. The Velkari weren't just refugees receiving charity. They were partners bringing gifts of their own. Kresh, Daehyun said. How many of your people know farming? Nearly all of us, Kresh replied. On our world, everyone spent time in the growing fields. It was part of our culture. Then I have a proposal. Mars needs to expand its food production. We have the space, but not enough trained farmers. If your people are willing to teach us, willing to work with us, we'll give you land. Not temporary shelters, real homes. Your own farms. Kresh's glowing patterns brightened, shifting to colors that Dr. Nam's tablet identified as joy and surprise. You would do this? You're not refugees anymore, Daehyun said. You're citizens of Mars, and citizens work together. The news of the agricultural breakthrough spread quickly. Within days, other colonies were reporting similar results. The Velkari weren't a burden, they were an asset. But more than that, they were teachers, artists, and friends. On Earth, Ambassador Yoon prepared for the most important speech of her career. The Galactic Council had demanded a response. Every major species in the galaxy would be watching. She stood before the Council's central chamber, transmitted across light years to appear as a hologram. Around her, hundreds of alien delegates watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The Council speaker, a tall being from one of the founding species, addressed her. Ambassador Yoon, humanity has defied a direct council order. You have harbored a contaminated species. You have ignored quarantine protocols. The council has decided humanity will be sanctioned until the Velkari are surrendered. What is your response? Yoon took a breath. She thought about Shari, the Velkari child. She thought about Kresh and his wheat. She thought about Elder Shesra and her simple words of thanks. Then she spoke. The council asks for our response. Here it is, no. Murmurs filled the chamber. The speaker's expression hardened. You refuse? We refuse, Yoon confirmed. We have examined the Velkari spores. They pose no danger to humans. In fact, they're beneficial. We've seen no evidence that the Velkari are the threat you claim they are. Other species, Yoon interrupted, have not provided evidence. They've provided accusations. Where are the medical studies? Where are the documented cases? Where is the science? She paused. Or is this about something else entirely? The chamber grew quiet. The speaker leaned forward. You accuse the council of lying? I accuse the council of being wrong, Yoon said. And I say humanity will not participate in that wrong. The Velkari needed help. We gave it. That's what civilized beings do. Then you choose exile, the speaker said coldly. You choose to stand alone, Yoon smiled. We're not alone. We have the Velkari. And I suspect we're not the only species who think the council made a mistake. She looked directly at the camera. To any species watching this who has ever felt the Council's power used against them, who has ever questioned these decisions, who has ever wanted to help but was afraid, humanity stands with you. We may be young, we may be weak, but we will not abandon our principles for your approval. The transmission ended. The chamber erupted in chaos. Back on Mars, Daehyun watched the speech with Kresh and the other Velkari farmers. When it ended, Kresh spoke softly. Your people are sacrificing so much for us. How can we ever repay this? Daehyun put his hand on the Velkari's shoulder. You already are. You're teaching us, working with us, living with us. You're showing us that differences make us stronger, not weaker. He smiled. Besides, I have a feeling this story isn't over yet. The Council thinks they've won, but they've never dealt with determined humans before. Elder Shesra, watching from her quarters in Luna Colony, felt tears in her eyes. Her people had been rejected by everyone, cast out, told they were contaminated, dangerous, unwanted. But these humans, these strange, stubborn, compassionate humans, had looked at the same beings and seen friends. She made a promise to herself then. Whatever happened, however this ended, the Velkari would remember. They would remember that when the galaxy turned its back, humanity opened its arms, and they would spend the rest of their existence proving that faith was not misplaced. Outside, the stars shone cold and distant. But inside the human colonies, warmth was growing. The warmth of new friendships, new partnerships, new hope. The Council had made its move. Now it was time to see what humanity would do next. Agent Kang Minho sat in his small office on Europa Station, staring at the encrypted message on his screen. He had been working in human intelligence for 8 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The message had been intercepted from a Council diplomatic channel and it made no sense, or rather it made too much sense. He read it again, slowly. The message was between 2 Council military officials discussing the Velkari, but they weren't talking about spores or contamination. They were talking about threat neutralization and maintaining order. One phrase stood out. The Velkari pacification effect must not spread to compliant populations. Pacification effect? What did that mean? Minho pulled up every file he could find on the Velkari. Most of it was recent. News reports about the refugees, agricultural reports from Mars, cultural exchange programs. But he dug deeper, searching Council databases that humans technically shouldn't have access to. The intelligence community had its ways. He found something. A research paper from 15 years ago, written by a Velkari scientist named Tresh. The paper discussed the biological properties of Velkari spores. According to the research, the spores didn't cause allergic reactions. Instead, they temporarily reduced aggressive hormones in most species. Beings exposed to Velkari spores became calmer, less territorial, less likely to engage in violence. Minho sat back in his chair. The pieces were starting to fit together and he didn't like the picture they were forming. He sent a secure message to his superior. Need immediate clearance to investigate Velkari exile. Possible Council conspiracy. This is urgent. 3 days later, Minho stood in a laboratory on Luna Colony with Tresh, the young Velkari scientist who had written that paper years ago. Tresh had been only 20 when he published his research. Now he was 35, older and wiser, but still curious about everything. I remember this paper, Tresh said, his bioluminescent patterns showing confusion. The Council asked me to study our spores after first contact. They said other species were having reactions. I wanted to help, so I researched everything. What did you find? Minho asked. Exactly what I published. The spores reduce aggression. They make beings more peaceful, more willing to communicate. Tresh's patterns shifted to sadness. I thought the Council would be happy. Peace is good, yes? But after I submitted my paper, everything changed. Council scientists said I was wrong. They said the spores caused terrible allergies. They showed data I had never seen. They said my research was dangerous. What happened to your paper? It was removed from all Council databases. I was told to stop researching. A few years later, my people were exiled. Tresh looked at Minho. I always wondered if I caused it somehow, if my research made them fear us. Minho pulled up the intercepted message on his tablet. Tresh, I need you to work with our scientists. I need you to prove what your original research said. Can you do that? Yes, but why? Humans already accept us. Because I think the Council lied. And if they lied about this, we need to know why. For the next 2 weeks, Tresh worked with human researchers. They tested the Velkari spores on tissue samples from dozens of council species. They ran computer simulations. They analyzed hormone levels and brain chemistry, and everything confirmed Tresh's original research. The spores didn't cause allergies. They promoted peace, but Minho needed more than science. He needed proof of intent. He needed to show that the council knew this and chose to lie anyway. That proof came from an unexpected source. Council investigator Pelthor was a member of a minor species, the Miran. His people had joined the council 200 years ago, hoping for protection and prosperity. Instead, they had found themselves pushed to the margins, their voices ignored, their requests denied. Pelthor had spent his career investigating corruption, but he had learned that some corruption was too big to fight. Until now. Pelthor had watched humanity defy the council. He had seen them sacrifice everything to help the Velkari, and something in him broke, or maybe something in him finally healed. He couldn't stay silent anymore. He sent a message to Agent Kang Minho through channels so secret even the council couldn't track them. I have files you need to see. Files that prove what the council did to the Velkari, and files that prove the Velkari weren't the first. Minho received the files on a secure data chip delivered by a courier who disappeared immediately after. When he opened the files, he understood why Pelthor had been so careful. The documents went back 1,000 years. They detailed species after species who had been marginalized, exiled, or destroyed by the council. The reasons were always different, but the pattern was the same. Any species that threatened the military-industrial complex that ran galactic civilization was removed. The Velkari were just the latest victims. Their spores made populations peaceful. Peaceful populations didn't support military expansion. Military expansion was how the council's dominant species maintained power. So the Velkari had to go. Minho took the files to Admiral Lee Hyun, who had been promoted after his rescue of the Velkari fleet. They sat in Hyun's office reading through 1,000 years of lies. They destroyed entire civilizations, Hyun said quietly, not with weapons, with laws and lies. They made it legal, made it seem necessary. What do we do with this? Minho asked. Hyun looked at him. We tell everyone. Every species in the galaxy needs to see this. The council will call it fake. They'll say we invented it. Some will believe them, but not everyone. Not the species who have suffered under council rule. They'll recognize their own stories in these files. Hyun stood. Get me our best documentary makers. Get me translators for every major galactic language. We're going to tell a story the council doesn't want told. It took 3 weeks to prepare. Human filmmakers worked with Velkari artists and a few brave individuals from other species who were willing to appear on camera. They compiled the evidence into a clear, powerful narrative. They didn't editorialize. They just presented the facts and let people draw their own conclusions. The documentary was called The Peace They Feared. It opened with images of the dying Velkari fleet, then moved through the evidence methodically. Scientific data showing the spores were harmless. Intercepted messages proving the council knew. Historical files revealing the pattern of lies. Interviews with species who had suffered similar treatment. Ambassador Yoon prepared to broadcast it across every open channel in the galaxy. She knew this would be seen as an act of war by the council, but she also knew that truth had power, and sometimes power needed to be challenged. Are we ready? She asked her communications team. Ready, Ambassador. Yoon took a breath. Then let's show the galaxy what their leaders have been hiding. Begin broadcast. The documentary went out simultaneously in 300 languages. It reached every corner of council space. On military stations, soldiers watched in shock. On civilian worlds, families gathered to see. On the council's home worlds, leaders scrambled to shut it down, but it was too late. The message was everywhere. The documentary ended with a simple statement from Admiral Hyun. The Galactic Council's leaders fear peace more than war. They've lied to you for 1,000 years. They've destroyed species whose only crime was making others less violent. They've built an empire on fear and maintained it with deception. The Velkari are proof of this, but they don't have to be the last victims. It's time for the galaxy to choose. Do we accept this or do we demand better? The reaction was immediate and chaotic. On minor council worlds, protests erupted. Species who had always felt marginalized suddenly understood why. They weren't inferior. They weren't weak. They were threats to an established order. On military stations, officers began questioning their orders. Why were they enforcing laws that protected the powerful at the expense of the peaceful? On the Council's homeworlds, leaders held emergency meetings. Some called for war against humanity, others argued for damage control. A very few, suggested that maybe humanity had a point. Elder Shesra watched the broadcast from Earth, surrounded by human and Velkari friends. When it ended, she wept. For her people, who had thought they were contaminated and dangerous, for all the species who had suffered, and for humanity, who had risked everything to reveal the truth. "Why did you do this?" she asked Hyun, who sat beside her. "You were safe. You had saved us. You could have accepted the sanctions and moved on. Why risk more?" Hyun looked at her with steady eyes. "Because saving you wasn't enough. We had to save others from the same fate. We had to try to fix the system that hurt you in the first place." He smiled. "That's what civilization should be. Not just helping those who are already hurt, but preventing future hurt. We don't want to live in a galaxy where what happened to you is acceptable." Shesara took his hand in hers. Her bioluminescent patterns glowed with gratitude, respect, and something deeper. Hope. "The Council will come for you now." "Let them come," Hyun said. "We're ready." But the Council was divided. And in that division, something new began to grow. Not war, but revolution. Not violence, but awakening. The galaxy was changing, and no amount of Council power could stop it. The message had been sent. The truth had been told. Now they would see if the galaxy was ready to listen. Fleet Admiral Baek Jisoo stood on the command deck of the Defiant, Earth's flagship, and watched the tactical display with growing concern. 300 Council warships were moving toward Earth. Their intent was clear. The Council had decided that words weren't enough. Now they would use force. "Time to contact?" she asked her tactical officer. 72 hours, Admiral. 72 hours to prepare. 72 hours to decide if humanity would fight or surrender. Jisoo had already made her choice, but she needed to be sure Earth's civilian government agreed. The call came through minutes later. The President of United Earth appeared on her screen, looking tired but determined. "Admiral Beck, we've seen the Council fleet. What are our chances?" Jisoo didn't believe in lying, especially not now. We have 60 ships. They have 300. Our technology is newer in some areas, older in others. In a straight fight, we lose, but this isn't a straight fight. The Council is fracturing. Minor species are refusing to support them. Some are actively protesting. If we can hold long enough, if we can show the galaxy that we won't back down, others might join us. The President nodded slowly. "Do what you need to do, Admiral. Earth stands behind you." The transmission ended. Jisoo turned to her crew. "All ships, battle formation. We're going to show the Council what happens when you threaten humanity's home." But humanity wasn't preparing alone. On Mars, Velkari General Kreshnal stood before Governor Kim Dae-hyun with an unusual request. Kreshnal had been a military commander on the Velkari homeworld before the exile. He knew war, he knew strategy, and he wanted to help. "My people are warriors too," Kreshnal said. "Not all of us are farmers and artists. Some of us know battle. Let us fight beside you." Dae-hyun hesitated. "Your people have already suffered so much. We can't ask you to fight our battles. You're not asking. We're offering." Kreshnal's patterns glowed with determination. "You stood with us when no one else would. Now it's our turn. Besides, this is our battle too. The Council exiled us. If they destroy you, they'll come for us next." Dae-hyun looked at the Velkari general. Then he nodded. "Welcome to the Defense Fleet, General. Let's show them what united species can do." But the most surprising response came from elsewhere in the galaxy. 70 hours before the Council fleet would reach Earth, something unexpected happened. Small groups of ships began appearing at the edge of human space. They weren't Council ships. They were vessels from minor species. The Miran, the Telesh, the Court, and dozens of others. Each group was small, sometimes just 3 or 4 ships. But they kept coming, and they all sent the same message. "We stand with humanity." Ambassador Yoon received delegations from 20 different species in a single day. They all told similar stories. They had suffered under Council rule. They had been ignored, marginalized, or threatened. They had seen what humanity did for the Velkari, and they had seen the truth in the documentary. Now they wanted to be part of something different. "We can't offer much," one delegate admitted. "Our ships are old. Our weapons are outdated, but we're here." Yoon felt tears in her eyes. You're offering everything. Your presence matters more than your weapons. The council noticed the gathering forces. Their admiral sent a message to Jisoo. Admiral Bayek, tell these minor species to disperse. This conflict is between the council and humanity. Anyone who stands with you will be considered an enemy of the council. Jisoo's response was broadcast on open channels so everyone could hear. These species aren't standing with humanity. We're all standing together. For dignity, for justice, for the right to help those in need without asking permission. If you want to reach Earth, you'll have to go through all of us. The council fleet stopped at the edge of human space. They had expected to face 60 human ships. Instead, they faced nearly 200 vessels from 30 different species. It wasn't enough to win a fight, but it was enough to make any victory costly. The council admiral opened a communication channel. His face appeared on screens throughout the gathered fleet. This is Admiral Throck of the Council Defense Forces. You are harboring enemies of galactic peace. You are spreading dangerous propaganda. You are in violation of council law. Surrender the Velkari and disband this fleet or face the consequences. Admiral Bayek responded. Admiral Throck, we are not your enemies. We are species who believe in compassion, in truth, and in the right to make our own choices. The Velkari are under our protection. This fleet represents free peoples making a free choice. If you attack us, you attack not one species but 30. Are you prepared for that? Throck's expression hardened. The council doesn't make empty threats. Neither do we, Bayek replied. For a long moment, nothing happened. The fleets faced each other across the void. Every captain had their hand on their weapons. Every crew member prepared for battle. Then something remarkable occurred. A ship detached from the council fleet. It was a Miran vessel, part of Pelthor's species. The ship moved slowly toward the combined fleet and sent a message. We will not fire on our brothers and sisters. We are Miran. We stand with those who seek peace. Another ship followed. Then another. Within an hour, 15 ships had left the council formation and joined the defenders. They were all from minor species, crews who had decided they couldn't fight for a system that had oppressed them. Admiral Throck watched his fleet fracture and knew he had a choice. He could attack and start a civil war that would tear the galaxy apart, or he could retreat and report that the mission was impossible. He chose a third option. All ships hold position, he ordered. Then he opened a private channel to Admiral Beck. Admiral, I'm a soldier. I follow orders. But I'm not blind. I watched your documentary. I've seen how this situation has developed. He paused. I need to know something. If I hold my fleet here, if I give the council time to reconsider, will you give me your word that you won't use this time to prepare an attack? Beck understood what he was really asking. Admiral Throck, humanity doesn't want war. We want to be left alone to help those who need help. If the council can accept that, we have no quarrel with them. Even after everything they've done, we're not looking for revenge. We're looking for change. There's a difference. Throck was silent for a moment. I'll report to the council that the situation is more complex than anticipated. I'll recommend negotiation rather than force, but I can't promise they'll listen. That's all we ask, Beck said. The council fleet remained at the border, neither advancing nor retreating. The combined fleet of humans, Velkari, and minor species held their position. For 3 days, the standoff continued. During those 3 days, something important happened throughout the galaxy. Species who had been silent started speaking up. Civilians protested on council homeworlds. Minor species governments demanded representation in council decisions. Even some major species began questioning the leadership. The galaxy was having a conversation it had avoided for centuries. Was the council serving the people, or was it serving itself? Was peace maintained through cooperation or through control? On the 4th day, the council sent a message, not to Admiral Beck or Admiral Throck, but to every species in the galaxy. The council speaker appeared, looking older and wearier than before. The Galactic Council acknowledges that recent events have revealed deep divisions in our civilization. We have heard the voices of those who feel unheard. We have seen the courage of those we dismissed as weak. We propose a summit. All species, major and minor, will send representatives. We will discuss the future of galactic governance. We will address the treatment of the Velkari and examine the historical claims made by humanity. This is not an admission of wrongdoing, but a commitment to truth. The message ended. Admiral Beck looked at her crew. They're offering negotiation. Is it a trap? Someone asked. Maybe, Beck admitted. But it's also an opportunity. If we refuse, we prove their claim that we're unreasonable. If we accept, we might actually change things. She opened a channel to Admiral Thruck. Admiral, will the Council honor safe passage for our delegates? You have my word, Thruck replied, and I'll escort them personally to ensure it. Word spread quickly. The standoff was ending without a single shot fired. The combined fleet had achieved something impossible. They had forced the most powerful government in the galaxy to negotiate. General Crescenal stood on Mars, watching the news with Governor Kim. We didn't have to fight, he said, sounding almost disappointed. Kim smiled. Sometimes the greatest victories are the ones where nobody dies. We proved something important today. We proved that standing together matters. We proved that the Council isn't invincible, and we proved that change is possible. On Earth, Elder Shesra addressed the Velkari people. My children, we came to humanity dying and desperate. We thought our story was ending. Instead, we found that our story was just beginning. We found beings who saw us not as contaminated, but as valuable, not as threats, but as friends, and together with them, we may have changed the galaxy. Admiral Bayek sent a message to all ships. Stand down from battle stations. Maintain defensive positions, but prepare for delegates to depart for the summit. Whatever happens next, remember this. We stood together, we didn't back down, and we gave the galaxy a chance to choose something better. That's worth celebrating. The celebration was brief. 2 years had passed since the standoff. The galaxy looked different now. Dr. Park Ji-won walked through the halls of the Interspecies Biological Research Institute on Luna, greeting colleagues from 15 different species. The institute was her proudest achievement, a place where beings from across the galaxy worked together to understand biology, to heal diseases, to make life better for everyone. She stopped at a window overlooking Earth. The blue planet looked peaceful from here, though she knew life was never truly peaceful. It was just better than it had been. The summit had lasted 6 months. Humanity had sent Ambassador Yoon to represent them. The Velkari had sent Elder Shesra. 30 minor species sent their leaders. Even some major council species had sent reformers who wanted change. The arguments had been fierce. The old council leadership had fought every proposal. They had tried to dismiss the historical evidence, tried to minimize their actions, tried to maintain control. But the truth was too clear, the support for change too strong. In the end, the Galactic Council had dissolved. In its place rose the Galactic Federation, a truly democratic body where every species had an equal voice. Decisions were made by consensus, not by military power. Leadership rotated among all member species. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. The Velkari had surprised everyone. Instead of demanding revenge or compensation, they had asked for only one thing: to serve as the Federation's diplomatic corps. Let us use our gift to help others communicate, Elder Shesra had said. Let us turn what the Council feared into what the galaxy needs. Now Velkari diplomats worked throughout the Federation. Their spores helped keep negotiations peaceful. What the old Council had seen as a threat was now seen as a blessing. Ji-won turned from the window and made her way to the research lab. Today was special. Today, they were publishing findings that would change everything. The research team had spent 2 years studying biological compatibility between species. What they discovered was revolutionary. The galaxy wasn't as divided as everyone thought. Species could work together, live together, even help each other's biology in unexpected ways. The Velkari spores were just the beginning. A species called the Brek produced enzymes that helped others digest a wider range of foods. The Miran had immune systems that could be studied to improve medicine for dozens of species. Every species had something unique to offer. We've been thinking about biology wrong, Ji-won told her team during the presentation. We've been focused on differences, on what separates us. But what matters is how we can complement each other. Biodiversity isn't just valuable, it's essential. The research spread through the Federation quickly. Medical advances followed. Food production improved. Even technology benefited as species shared their unique perspectives on solving problems. On Mars, young Hyun-woo walked to school with his best friend Shari, a Velkari girl his age. They had grown up together, neither of them remembering a time when their species weren't friends. To them, the stories of the exile seemed like ancient history, not something that happened just a few years before they were born. Did you finish the history assignment? Hyun-woo asked. Shari nodded, her pattern showing embarrassment. I had to ask my grandmother about it. She was there on the fleet when your people found us. What did she say? She said she thought they were going to die. All of them. She had made peace with it. Shari paused. Then your ships came. She said it was like watching stars appear in complete darkness. Hyunwoo thought about that. He had heard similar stories from his grandfather, Captain Lee Hyun, who was retired now but still told stories to anyone who would listen. My grandfather says they were just doing what anyone should do. But they weren't, Shari said quietly. No one else did. Only humans. At school, they sat in a classroom with students from 8 different species. Their teacher, a Telesh named Cora, taught them about the old days. Not to make them angry, but to help them understand how far they had come. The old council ruled through fear, Cora explained. They made species believe they were better off alone, that differences were dangerous. But your generation will never make that mistake. You've grown up knowing that differences make us stronger. After school, Hyunwoo and Shari stopped at the memorial in New Seoul. It showed a human and a Valkyrie reaching toward each other. The inscription read, "They told us to look away. We chose to see. They told us to abandon them. We chose to embrace. This is not humanity's triumph. This is what civilization should always have been." My grandmother cries every time she sees this, Shari said. Happy crying or sad crying? Both, I think. Elder Shesra was old now, her scales duller, her movements slower. She spent most of her time on Earth in a comfortable home near the ocean. Ambassador Yoon visited her often. They had become close friends during the summit, 2 beings who had fought together for something better. Do you ever think about what would have happened if Captain Hyun had turned away? Yoon asked during one visit. Shesra looked out at the ocean. Every day, my people would be gone. Just another forgotten species in a galaxy that didn't care. She turned to Yoon. But he didn't turn away, and because of that everything changed. Was it worth it? Yoon asked. All the suffering your people went through? Nothing is worth suffering, Shesra said firmly. But meaning can come from suffering. My people learned that we weren't contaminated or dangerous. We learned that we were valuable. And the galaxy learned that compassion is stronger than fear. She smiled. Yes, I think it was worth it. But I'm glad I'll never have to make that choice again. Admiral Lee Hyun, fully retired now, spent his days writing. He was documenting the story of the Valkyrie rescue, not for glory, but for history. He wanted future generations to understand what had happened and why. Admiral Beck came to visit him sometimes. She was still in service, now leading the Federation Defense Forces. It was a different kind of military. One focused on protection rather than conquest. On keeping peace rather than enforcing control. The young ones don't understand how close we came to war, Beck said during one visit. Hyun nodded. That's good. It means they're growing up in a better world. Do you think it will last? Nothing lasts forever, Hyun admitted. But we've given them a foundation. We've shown them that standing up for others matters. We've proven that doing the right thing even when it's hard can change everything. He smiled. They'll face their own challenges, but they'll have our example to guide them. That evening, a transmission was sent into deep space, toward regions still unexplored. It was a message from the Galactic Federation, approved by all member species. The words were simple. To any species who might hear this, the galaxy is vast and sometimes it can be cruel, but it can also be kind. If you are lost, if you are hunted, if you are alone, look for the blue planet. Look for the Federation worlds. Look for those who chose to see the best in strangers rather than the worst. We don't promise you riches. We don't promise you power. But we promise you will never be abandoned again. This is our vow. Your story doesn't end in exile. It begins in sanctuary. Come to the stars. You are not alone. The message traveled outward at light speed, carrying hope into the darkness. On Earth, humanity continued its daily life. They worked alongside Valkyrie and Miran and dozens of other species. They learned new languages, tried new foods, listened to new music. They argued sometimes, disagreed often, but always worked toward understanding. Children like Hyunwoo and Shari grew up knowing that the galaxy was big enough for everyone. They learned that differences weren't things to fear, but things to celebrate. They understood that civilization wasn't measured by weapons or wealth, but by how you treated those who needed help. Dr. Park Ji-won stood in her laboratory, looking at data from the newest research project. They were studying a recently discovered species on the edge of Federation space. These beings were struggling, their world dying, their future uncertain. The Federation was organizing a relief mission. "Here we go again," one of her colleagues said, not unkindly. Jiwon smiled. "That's what we do. That's who we are now." Governor Kim Dae-hyun, older now and preparing to retire, looked at the thriving farms on Mars. Humans and Velkari worked side by side, growing food that fed millions. The red soil that had once seemed so hostile to life now produced harvests beyond anything he had imagined when he first arrived on Mars. "We built something good here," he said to Kresh, the Velkari farmer who had started it all. "We built it together," Kresh corrected. "That's the only way anything good is built." At the Federation headquarters, species gathered to vote on the next rotating leader. A court representative was chosen, a being from one of the smallest, quietest species in the galaxy. In the old days, the court would never have had power. Now they would lead the Federation for the next 3 years. When asked how they felt about it, the court leader said simply, "Humbled and honored. We will serve all species equally, as is our duty." That night, across Earth and its colonies, across Velkari settlements and Miran worlds and 100 other places, people looked up at the stars and felt something they hadn't felt before: belonging. The galaxy wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, still problems, still species who resisted change. But the foundation had been laid. The pattern had been set. When someone needed help, others would answer.